Have you ever made a decision that felt right at the time, but later made you wonder, did I make the right choice? If you have, you're not alone. Life is full of decisions, some easy, some difficult, and some that only reveal their true impact long after they've been made. Today, I want to talk about a choice that many seniors consider at some point, moving into a nursing home. It's a decision that comes with a lot of hope. Hope for comfort, safety, and an easier way of living. But for many, the reality turns out to be far different than expected. I never imagined I would regret moving into a nursing home. But looking back, there are some hard truths I wish I had known before making the leap. And if you or a loved one is thinking about taking this step, I want to share my experience so you can make the most informed decision possible. At first, everything seemed fine. The staff was friendly, the rooms were clean, and the promise of no more worries felt like a relief. But over time, I began to notice things, subtle at first, then harder to ignore. The first thing that hit me was the loss of independence. When I lived in my own home, I could wake up whenever I wanted, eat what I wanted, and fill my day with whatever made me happy. If I wanted to stay up late watching an old movie, no one could tell me otherwise. But here, there were schedules to follow, meal times that didn't change, and rules about everything from visiting hours to when the lights went out at night. At first, I told myself, it's just an adjustment. But after weeks of feeling like I had to ask permission for things I used to do freely, I started to wonder, had I traded my freedom for convenience? Then there was the social aspect. You'd think living with so many other seniors would mean plenty of new friendships, right? But let me tell you, loneliness doesn't disappear just because you're surrounded by people. In fact, it can feel even worse. In my own home, I had my community, neighbors who had known me for years, the cashier at my favorite grocery store who always asked how my grandkids were doing, even the mailman who'd been delivering my letters for a decade. Here in this new place, I was just another resident. The staff was kind, but they were busy. Other residents had their own routines, their own cliques. It wasn't as easy as I thought to find real connection. And then there was the cost. No one really prepares you for that part. Nursing homes don't come cheap, and even if you think you've planned well, the expenses add up. Monthly fees, extra charges for small services, the cost of personal items. It was more than I expected. The worst part? Knowing that every dollar spent here was a dollar that wouldn't go to my children or grandchildren. It made me wonder, was this really the best way to spend what I had worked so hard for? At this point, I started questioning everything. Had I been too quick to assume I couldn't manage on my own? Had I believed the idea that moving to a nursing home was the only way to make life easier? But here's the thing. When you realize you may have made a mistake, what do you do next? I'll tell you what happened next in just a moment. Because what I learned from this experience wasn't just about regret, it was about understanding the reality of choices and figuring out what really matters. What happened next was something I hadn't fully prepared for. The slow realization that my sense of purpose was fading. When you live in your own home, there's always something to do. Whether it's tending to the garden, fixing a small repair, or even just deciding what's for dinner, those little decisions keep your mind active and your body engaged. But in a nursing home, many of those choices are made for you. At first, that might sound like a relief. No more worrying about chores, no more grocery shopping, no more responsibilities. But what I didn't expect was how empty my days would start to feel. Without a reason to get up in the morning, without tasks that made me feel useful, I began to feel unnecessary. It wasn't that anyone was unkind or that I wasn't being cared for. But care and purpose aren't the same thing. It hit me hardest one afternoon when I realized I had spent almost the entire day just sitting. Not because I was too tired to move, but because there was nothing to do. I wasn't needed, I wasn't contributing. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I was just existing. That feeling of fading into the background wasn't just in my head. Over time, I noticed how easily the world outside moved on without me. When I lived in my own home, my children and grandchildren visited often, neighbors stopped by, and I was part of a larger community. But after I moved, those visits became less frequent. "You're in good hands now," they would say. And while I knew they meant well, it was as if my independence had been replaced not just with care, but with distance. And that brings me to another truth I didn't expect: how much control I would lose over my own decisions. In a nursing home, decisions that once felt personal suddenly became policies. Meal choices were limited, doctor visits were scheduled for me, and even the way my room was set up had restrictions. At first I thought, well, that's just how it is. But over time, it started to feel like my life was no longer my own. I wasn't in control of my own space, my own routine, or even my own health in the way I had been before. One of the hardest moments came when I wanted to take a short trip to visit an old friend. In my own home, I would have just packed a bag and gone. But here, it was a process: approvals, paperwork, concerns about liability. What should have been a simple visit became an ordeal, and in the end, I didn't go. That was the moment I truly understood. I had given up more than just a house. I had given up a piece of myself. But what could I do? I had made my choice, and now I had to live with it. Or did I? Because if I've learned anything in my years, it's that it's never too late to make a change. And what I did next changed everything. I had spent months feeling like a shadow of my former self, trapped in a place that was supposed to bring me comfort, but instead left me feeling powerless. But one morning, as I sat by the window watching the world outside carry on without me, I asked myself a question. Was this really how I wanted to spend the rest of my life? The answer was clear. No, it wasn't. I had believed that moving into a nursing home was my only option, that it was the best way to stay safe, to make life easier, to avoid being a burden. But I had overlooked something important. I still had choices. Just because I had moved in didn't mean I had to stay. And so I started asking questions. What would it take for me to live independently again? Could I manage it financially? What kind of support would I need? The more I thought about it, the more I realized that I had let fear make the decision for me. Fear of getting older, fear of struggling alone, fear of asking for help. But the truth is, independence doesn't mean doing everything alone. It means having the freedom to choose how you want to live. So I made a plan. I reached out to my family, explained how I was feeling, and together we explored alternatives. Maybe I didn't need a full nursing home. Maybe a smaller apartment with some assistance was enough. Maybe I could arrange for in-home care a few days a week instead of giving up my freedom entirely. And you know what? Once I decided to take control of my own life again, everything changed. My energy came back. My sense of purpose returned. I felt like me again. I know not everyone can or will make the same decision I did. But here's what I want you to take from my experience. Don't let fear make your choices for you. There are always options, and the best way to prepare for the future is to stay informed, stay connected, and never stop advocating for yourself. If you've been thinking about moving into a nursing home, take your time. Visit different places, talk to the residents. Ask yourself if it truly fits your needs, not just now, but in the years to come. And if you're already in one and feeling the way I did, know that you still have the power to change your situation. Life doesn't have to shrink just because we get older. We still have a voice, we still have value, and most importantly, we still have choices. If this video resonated with you, share your thoughts in the comments. Have you or a loved one experienced something similar? Let's start a conversation and help each other navigate this journey with wisdom and strength. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more content on living your best life at any age. Here's to making choices that truly serve you.